you can have all the ideas you want in the world, and you can have all the best tech, and you can have all the best systems. But your biggest challenge and the biggest bit of emotional intelligence you have to have is how do you get the teams to follow you and take you on that journey?
Hi, I'm Belden Menkus. Welcome to the Purposeful Strategist, the podcast that shifts the conversation about purpose and strategy from what organizations should do to what business leaders actually are doing and what they've learned along the way. My guest today is Scott Heath, Chief Executive Officer of DJH, a UK accountancy and advisory firm that has grown rapidly through acquisitions in recent years. Scott joined the business in 2003 and has risen through the ranks to lead it today, overseeing a period of significant expansion as the firm builds out its presence across the UK. He's been particularly vocal about the role culture plays in making acquisitions work, not just financially, but in practice. Scott, welcome to the Purposeful Strategist.
Thank you. Glad to be on it.
Good. Yeah, really glad to have you here. Just to kind of get us started, could you maybe give us a picture of DJH today, what it looks like, who you serve, and the role you see it playing in the UK accountancy market?
So DJH, today, over 800 people across 16 sites in the UK. That's changed a lot in my time. Back in 2019, we were a headcount of around 60 people. So 2019 and 2026, we've had some rapid growth.
Massive growth. That's like tech startup growth.
Yeah, it's been a mixture of organic growth and normal marketing kind of channels, but all buy and builds have been acquiring practices along the way as well. So last week we completed on our 20th acquisition over that 5-year period. So yeah, it's been a busy few years.
And just acquisition, in my mind, when people, when particularly professional services firms talk about acquisition, it always seems to me that many of them think, we've got to have outside capital for that. Have you done that, or has it all been sort of funded internally?
So if we go back to 2019, we were turning over sort of 4.5 million of revenue, and we were a headcount of about 60. We grew it in our own buy and build, just with our own capital to start with. And we managed to get the business up to around about 16 million of revenue and about 230 people. That was all off our own cash flow. And it was very, very interesting. We managed kind of month to month, we were really running the business super, super tight, and it got hairy at times, which kind of teaches you good discipline and kind of good systems and good procedures to make sure that you're in control. And then we started the growth journey, and kind of the culture in the business is around growth and expansion and kind of pushing our people and kind of an ambitious culture. And I think we found ourselves that once you start on that journey, you can't really go backwards. If you're bringing people into your business and you're attracting talent that want to push on and want to grow, kind of the ball's rolling, you've got to go with it. So we got to 2022 and we had multiple approaches from private equity, and we took our partner on, which is Tenzing. They joined the business in October 2022 and brought a 50% stake in the business, and they've been our partner ever since, which has helped us then to kind of really accelerate and kind of push on with our growth and ambitious plans.
Yeah, it's sort of something to come back to, but that time you talked about where it was really tight, you really need to have all the systems and everything else, it reminds me of an observation that I've seen many times, which is, a recession, when things are very difficult, is the best time to start a business because you start it lean. You start it with all that. And it sounds like you've had some of that built in as you've gone.
Yeah, I think although we've grown the business significantly, it's the details that matter still. So even today, we still run on those same principles and kind of have this productive paranoia that there's no point waiting for a recession and then thinking, okay, how do I kind of get my business in a good shape because it's too late then. You've got to be running your business every day with the point of view of small 1% improvements. It's not going to be anything you can just do that. Not in our business particularly. It's not like we've got a transformational product or whatever. It's kind of small 1% improvement and just keep doing those 1% improvements. And kind of you look back and you think, oh, wow, look how far we've come. But then that becomes the new benchmark, and then you have to go again and go again. It's good sometimes just to take a step, put your foot on the brake and look back and go, okay, we did all that. So we can achieve what we're trying to do moving forward.
Well, maybe you could, if you don't mind, take us back, if not to the very beginnings of the firm, certainly when you joined it. What was it all about at that point, and what problem was it trying to solve? What was, what was the rationale?
So I've been here a long time. From when I joined the business in 2003, I think it was a headcount of 10 people. And in our world, I did my professional exam, so I'm a chartered accountant by trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I was studying with my qualifications, so I wasn't even qualified. And I joined the business at a period where they'd just done an acquisition. So they'd acquired a business that was 2 times as big as the business that I joined. So the business I joined was turning over sort of 300,000 of fees, not a big business. And they had acquired something sort of 600,000 of fees. My ex-business partner will probably agree with this. They got it badly wrong. Culturally, the two firms weren't aligned. They had different cultures, they had different values, they had a different sense of purpose. What it did do is give them a bit of scale to kind of push on. The business I joined was a startup business that hadn't been going for very long, but they set up in the accountancy sector to be more proactive, more advisory, and kind of relationship-led with your clients rather than just being a compliance-based business. But they acquired this practice and kind of didn't do the due diligence on the culture. And I think the first few days, a lot of the team walked out because they communicated too very well. And I still reference that point now because it benefited me because I wasn't at a stage in my career where I wasn't a manager, I wasn't a director, but I fell on my feet really because the team that I should have been reporting to all walked out. So I was pretty much in the deep end and learned how to swim very quick. And from there, very fastly got promoted to a manager, to a director, and then eventually took equity in that business sort of 2 years later. And then we organically grew it over a long period of time. So over a good 10-year period, it was organic growth, just doing what the business do, going out, winning new work, relationship-led, being proactive, doing the small changes. It was really in 2018 where we kind of took a step back and looked at the business and we wanted to scale the business. And in any business you run, it's really, really hard because business owners have to wear multi-hats. You're often kind of spinning plates, all different sectors. And we needed a marketing expertise, but we hadn't got it. We needed a finance expertise, but we hadn't got it. We needed training and talent, and we hadn't got it. And you have to wear all these hats. So we kind of scale and growth and kind of putting that platform in enables you to invest in those areas, which is paying dividends now because it's relentless, isn't it? Because there's one thing after the other running a business. Like AI now is such an important part of the business. If we hadn't scaled our business, we wouldn't be able to invest the levels of sums that we invest in AI now and would have got left behind. So, yeah.
And how do you think your experience is sort of joining it very, sort of almost at the beginning of your career and then kind of working your way up to become CEO? How do you think that shaped how you think about strategy?
It's an interesting one with being an accountant and kind of, we're very fortunate as an industry that you get exposed to lots of business owners. So over my time, I've had some amazing clients and have got some amazing clients. I would say I've learned quite a lot off my existing client bank, which is interesting because I'm there to advise them, but often they've got challenges in their business. So you see it, experience it, you see how one person deals with it, how it goes really well, and then you see how somebody else does it, and it perhaps doesn't work as well. So we're in a fortunate situation as business advisors that you get to kind of, you get to mentor and coach, but you also kind of get to see all the different scenarios as well. So I've been very fortunate with some of my client relationships and I've got some really good clients, but also professional relationships. And that comes back to culture. We've always done the right thing as a business. You can't get anywhere fast you can't cheat. There isn't a cheat sheet. And culture is really important. If you treat people how you'd like to be treated yourself and you work well with other professionals and other introducers and you work together, they look out for you as well, don't they? So they help you out. Running a business, whatever business you run, isn't easy, but if you run it with the right moral compass, then you stand a better chance of kind of hitting your goals and your ambitions, is my belief anyway.
Yeah. And when you think about the business model, clearly growth is a big part of it. So how do you balance growth, kind of integrating the businesses, the firms that you're acquiring and maintaining quality of service, maintaining culture? How do you manage all of that? How do you balance it all?
Balancing it's an interesting one. Anybody who's got private equity investment in the business will know it's pretty full on. I kind of describe being backed by private equity as having kind of 6 levers to go forward. And it's not where you're pulling one and pulling one. It's all 6 full steam ahead and kind of hold on and hold on for the ride. So it is having private equity backing or institutional backing is that you can be working on one lane and think you're doing really, really fantastic, and you get a little pat on the back, but it's like, well, have you thought about this and have you thought about that? Which is great because it gets the business in a much better shape in a faster period of time. We look at lots of acquisitions. Although we've done 20, I've probably looked at 200 businesses, and kind of we talk about it and we say, what are the most important things? And we say, number 1 is culture, number 2 is culture, number 3 is culture, number 4 is culture, and 5 is strategic fit. So we're partnering, we're merging, we're acquiring with other accountancy practices with the same values as us, which does then make the integration post easier. We're not buying distressed businesses, we're buying good quality businesses, and working together, we're stronger. So our strapline is great things together. Often when we partner with a business, it might bring something unique. So we might buy a business that's got a certain specialism, and then that helps the rest of the group. Or they might have a certain part of tech that we then roll out across the rest of the group. So each time we do one, the family stable is becoming stronger and stronger. It's kind of all the businesses working together to get the best out of each other.
It does seem to me that as any business grows, particularly if it's growing by acquisition, the profile of the targets you can go after changes. As you get bigger, for it to make any difference, you've either got to do an awful lot more or you've got to go after bigger acquisitions. And at some point, you kind of run out of, at least, you were kind of talking to 10 to 1. You talk to 10, you find one that works. How do you see that playing out over time? When do you have to shift or do something different?
Yeah, it depends. So we're lucky in our model that our investors are long-term holder. So it's not kind of go and grab as much as you can.
Yeah.
To integrate it. I always think about our business as I run it like I still run it as if it was my own business. I'm still a big chunky shareholder in the business, but as you're going to make long-term decisions, so acquiring the right firms, putting technology in, putting AI in your recruitment strategy, you've got to make the decisions that are for the long term, and then the business will be better for it. The marketplace in the UK and our sector is still really there's still a big size to go at. To date, our story is a success story, and I think we're currently sort of number 30-ish in the UK now, size-wise, which we've come a long way. But when you look at the whole market and the accounting landscape, we're tiny still compared to the top 10 concentration of accountancy firms is huge, and the top 20 is. So our runway for the next 4 to 5 years, there's still plenty of good businesses to go after. There's parallel service lines that we can go into and run a bit of that kind of branching into different sectors. So yeah, the runway's still a long way for us to go, but you're right with it. What does happen, and sometimes in the secondary transaction for somebody to move on, is they have to go and buy something much bigger. Much bigger doesn't always make sense though, because it's a different approach to what we've done in the past, and kind of can come with a lot more risk and a lot more challenges. Yeah.
You mentioned AI. I'd be interested to hear sort of how you're thinking about it, how you're using it, where it sits in terms of mostly using it kind of on a personal basis. Individual people get a license and do whatever they do versus a firm. We've decided to take this whole process and change it across the whole firm. And also, how much are you using it for cost versus kind of identifying new revenue generating things you can offer?
Yeah, I'm kind of coming back to my point around making long-term decisions and turn investments in the business. Kind of, it echoes this. When we ran the business originally, and pre it being sort of one of the big benefits of having an institutional investor or an investor to give you more capital is when we had the business before we did the private equity deal, yes, we invested, but we probably didn't do all 6 levers in one go.
Right.
And we probably didn't place as many strategic bets at the same time. When we got the business up to the size it was when we took on investment, it's kind of hard because you sell your business, and it is when you take an investor and you have sold some of it, and you sell your business at a peak, and like you massage all those numbers because it's your one chance to sell it, and your advisors are pushing every penny out of it. And then as a CEO or an MD who stays on, the day after you're running that business based on those numbers, and you're like, okay, that's my budget now, so that's what I've got to stick to. And then it's someone's invested serious money or put serious capital into your business. Then to grow the next stage, you've got to professionalize the business. I'm not saying we weren't professional before, but you've got to put in structure in to go again. And we had a period of time for the first 12 months, we didn't do many acquisitions after the investment. And we went away and we invested heavily in our platform. We invested heavily in governance, risk and compliance, heavily in technology, heavily in our infrastructure and our finance. And it was quite hard at the time because you see your profit or your EBITDA going the other way, and you see all these costs coming into the business, and you're kind of managing that investment expectation. And then what it has allowed us to do then is we went on to the acquisition trail after that. And we feel now it's in control because there's a well-oiled team that it's easier for me than ever because my team do the day-to-day. Go back to the olden days, there was 2 or 3 of us doing everything. Now there's a team that deliver the projects. So we got the momentum then with the acquisitions to grow into those overheads. We've done that now, and then we've got to a point where my belief, and I'm no tech expert by all means, but what I've done is brought some tech experts into the business. We have created one consolidated platform. So in our world, all our acquisitions sit and operate on the same operating system. And my tech team were adamant that we needed to do that first of all before we could even consider AI. That project was finished sort of 8 months ago where we all operate on one system. So we're starting to see all the momentum now of being able to put AI in the systems and kind of all the different types of AI running alongside that. We've got quite a few bits of AI already in the business making a difference, but AI is evolving every day as well. We're starting to see some of the benefits, and we've got some more further projects coming now. And what that's going to help us to do is attract more like-minded individuals as well. So some of the firms where in the earlier stages of our acquisition, culture was really important, progression, retention was really important. What we are being asked more and more now when we're pitching for businesses is, what is your AI strategy? How can you help us with AI? How can you help us remain competitive? So we're investing over 7-figure sum this year in kind of trial projects in AI, which I was a smaller business, or if I wasn't part of the 20 acquisitions, we couldn't do that. But to kind of answer one of your questions before as well, that although we're a larger business now and kind of a much bigger business, and I think this year we'll do over 80 million revenue, our customer profile hasn't changed. The type of customer we look after, the type of client we look after hasn't changed. It's just more of the same type of client.
Yeah. What's the client profile? What's a typical, DJH client?
So typical DJH client is an owner-managed business or a high-net-worth individual or an overseas subsidiary company that needs financial management support, advisory, compliance, corporate finance. It's not our market, and we're not interested in like the public interest entities or the listed entities. And that's just not our space. Our space is where we can advise a client on multiple services, whether it's consultancy, finance, raising debt, tax planning. So turnovers anywhere really from sort of $1 million to 100 million. There's a wide range. All different sectors: hospitality, haulage, construction, manufacturing, retail, healthcare. We've got some specialisms, but they tend to be in different sectors in the office. So that one good thing is we're not just linked to one sector, which is de-risk it quite. And we're lucky as accountants, and we don't take it for granted, but we do have a real sense of what we call recurring income. So in our business, there's a lot of compliance you have to do. You have to have your accountant every year. You can choose who you want to go to, and there's an open market there, but you have to have your accountant, you have to have your tax done. So if we've got 20,000 business clients, we can open the doors at the beginning of the year and say, okay, we've got 20,000 of these to do 10. And the forward order book is a very fortunate position to be in versus a retailer that opens the doors and says, who's going to come into my shop today? We're quite fortunate with that kind of predictable income. But AI is going to change that.
You talked about the platform. Conceptually, I understand what that is. But as a practical matter, if I pitched up as a new client, what would happen on the platform, and what, if anything, wouldn't happen on the platform, would be done somewhere else?
Yeah. So if you think of it, if you pitched up as a new client, we're not a sales driven business. We're an advisory business. So if you pitch up as a new client, every client will be at a different stage of the journey. It might be a startup, it might be a high growing business, it might be a business that needs funding. So the idea being is everybody who comes on as a client has a point of contact, a senior in the business. We call them client service directors, the person that takes the overall responsibility for that relationship. And then it's that client services director's responsibility to dip into the platform and pull out all those skills that are needed to look after that client. So if you've got a client that might be buying their first ever property. There'd be a specialist within the business that could help and guide them. And they're there when they need them, but they're not there every day. So kind of you pull in that skill set for your business. Or you might have a client who wants to buy a business, and then there's a specialist team who can help them with that. Or you might have a client who wants to incentivize the management team. But you have this one point of contact, so it's a relationship-led business, because I think in professional services, it's all about relationships. If you need to understand your customer, but the world of accounting is very complex. So you can't expect one individual to understand everything. We need to surround them with like a toolkit and a platform of tools to go and help and advise their clients.
Yeah. So it's clearly over the last few years, maybe even longer than that, you've made some pretty significant strategic choices.
Yep.
I'm sure at one level, every acquisition you do could feel a little like a strategic choice, but you've also made some sort of big money that, 7-figure investment in AI really sounds chunky. That must have been something required a lot of debate. So if I were in the room when you were talking about some of those issues, who would be there? And, sort of what's your process for making decisions like that?
So yeah, it's changed a lot. Go back to when it was a 16 million turnover business. It was me and my right-hand person, my ops director, and we'd sometimes fly by the seat of our pants making some of these decisions. Now we have obviously much more structure. It doesn't mean we don't remain agile. The process I have to go through now is we have an operational board. On that board, I have a CTO. On that board, I have a head of M&A. On that board, I have a head of marketing, customer and brand. I have a finance director or CFO. I have my chairman. I have my investment directors. I have a head of sales. So we all sit on here and we all debate it and kind of discuss the projects in a lot more detail. I think to make a project work, you've really got to map it out, plan the detail. And rather than trying to get a product and roll it out, I think you sometimes have to go and map out the exact problem, try to solve, then go and find the products. I think in the early days, we were guilty of people would bring us a product and say, oh, you need to put this into your business. And then you kind of try to shoehorn it in. Where as we've matured, what we've got better at is, okay, what are the challenges we're having in the business? What's the process? How's that process made up? What are all the parts of it? What are we trying to solve for? And then go to market and look if there's something that fits rather than the other way around would be my biggest learning curve. And not being scared to invest and not living with the status quo. The big challenge is change management. It's a fast business that we're in. And we've changed a lot over that period of time. And I've had to adapt. Other people have adapted. Some people move on. It's not for everybody. I kind of describe it as we're growing, that some people are at the right stage of the journey and grow with us. And some people, it's not for them because we're moving in a direction that's not for them as well. So it isn't for everybody. And I have to respect that, especially when we acquire a business. Sometimes they didn't want to be part of we might acquire a business that's a 50 headcount business and they didn't want to be part of a 1,000 headcount business. And we have to respect that. Change management is, you can have all the ideas you want in the world and you can have all the best tech and you can have all the best systems. But your biggest challenge and the biggest bit of emotional intelligence you have to have is how do you get the teams to follow you and take you on that journey? And hopefully we're getting better at that, but you can never master it perfectly because human beings are complicated individuals. And when you're changing what they do on a day-to-day basis, when they think it's absolutely fine, what they're currently doing involves change management and kind of communication and winning the hearts and minds of people.
Yeah. And if you look out, say 5-10 years, what does success look like? Is it just continue to grow at we're kind of on this trajectory. We've got to stay on it. Is it getting more specialized? Is it is it becoming number one or maybe number 30?
I took the investment 3 years ago now. I said to all my team that I'd do 10 years. I'm already 3 years in and I keep saying 10 years from now. So kind of,
there
might be a point in time in this business when somebody else leads it and it's not me. And that's absolutely fine. And I respect that might need to happen at some point. I've taken the business from 300,000 to 80 million. At some point, you might need a different person for the next chapter. Our market opportunity and runway is still huge. Organic growth is really important to us. We have a target of 10% organic growth every year. I kind of constantly talk about the need for organic growth because if we never did another acquisition ever again, organic growth is the lifeblood of the business because if you're doing 80 million, it becomes 88 million, it becomes 96 million, it becomes 105, and the business is good. So organic growth is really, really important. You can't just keep bolting on acquisition because that's not a long-term strategy. We continue to kind of build in specialisms. So even before strategic acquisitions, we've just got a strategic acquisition on at the moment, which will add to our tax expertise in the business. And hopefully it should complete at the end of April. That opportunity that we're adding to the business is going to give us the ability to compete with the top 5 firms in the UK. So we are, all of a sudden, we're going to be in this space where actually it's a bit of a game-changing moment for us. It's a bit of, okay, we've got to this size now, and actually we're going to strengthen our team, ready to go again. Taxation in the UK is only going to go one way at the moment for the next few years, and it's getting more and more complex. So strategically, we're investing in that side of the business, and we'll continue to make those decisions. So whether it's taxation or more investment in our corporate finance teams, building out the professional services platform. So we're there for that kind of small to medium-sized enterprise business.
And DJH is a B Corp. When and how did you decide to become one?
So B Corp status. So we decided 3 to 4 years ago that we wanted to get the accreditation. One of our values of the business is community. We've got 5 values in the business. Honesty. I think it's always important to be honest. Ambition. We're an ambitious business. Passionate. We're passionate about our people. We're passionate about our clients. We're passionate about doing teamwork, and it all goes back to the culture one. And the 5th one was community. And sometimes that community one can get left a bit behind when you become busy. And kind of, it's like, okay, let's have this nice to tick box that we've got a community value, but how do you get some energy and some passion around it? What attracted us to B Corp is it gives you a really structured framework to evaluate your business as part of the process. And it takes some doing to get the accreditation. And I'll come back to that in a second. So you get the accreditation and you go through this framework and you're benchmarking yourself against your peers of what you are doing. But what it does then do is give you a real actually gap analysis to say, okay, we need to take these other areas serious. And just things like we really enhanced our maternity pay. We really enhanced our paternity pay. We really enhanced some of our training. We really enhanced how we thought about energy use in the business. So it made you kind of take a step back and check. And we've got that accreditation now for 3 years. But it was only yesterday I was speaking to my marketing director who's responsible for it. And I said, okay, I want you now to reassess us where we are now and where all the gaps were, what we didn't do, because you have to get a certain score. Yeah. What are all the things that now we've got it? Let's not just take it. How do we go and do the next things so that when we come around for accreditation next time, we didn't just get the accreditation, we constantly improved ourselves on that journey. But it's important to our people, it's important to our customers, but it's an important kind of check or sanity check or check on how the business is going to make sure we're not in the pursuit of growth. We're not forgetting one of the core values of the business.
Sort of zooming back a little bit from that, kind of more generally, to what extent do you see accounting firms as having a remit that's broader than just making money?
Yeah, again, as an accountancy business, very fortunate. It's an industry I kind of fell into. I kind of left school with some good qualifications, went to college and didn't do very well at college, and then kind of fell into accountancy. But as a career, it creates so many opportunities, and whether that's with clients or with other professionals or with other introducers, or the ability to have an impact on businesses and have an impact on people's lives, whether that's kind of, as a business, we're responsible for over 800 people's mortgages, but at the same time, our people are responsible for helping other people. We're responsible with helping people to raise debt to run their businesses. We're responsible for helping them to navigate difficult circumstances. We're responsible to make sure there's integrity in business and ethics in business. So the profession at most levels has escaped kind of a lot of criticism. I know there has been some kind of big cases over the years where there's been criticism, but overall, accountants have a big involvement in businesses and communities, and kind of, so it's definitely not about profit. And I think you can't, when you're running a business, you can't set out to make profit. You've got to set out to run a real decent business built on sound values, sound culture. In our business, we talk about people first. I can love my clients to bit, and every client is a valued client of this business, but my people are more important, because if I haven't got my people, I couldn't look after the clients in the first place. So it's kind of people first, followed very, very closely by clients, and then the two together go in hand. But if I didn't have 800 amazing people, I wouldn't have any clients, because the clients wouldn't be happy and they'd go elsewhere. So we're a people first culture in this business.
You know, just as you're saying that, it reminds me of that, you know, the bit in the aircraft when they're doing the briefing is put on your oxygen mask first.
Yeah, good way of explaining it.
Scott, I've really enjoyed the chat. Really great to hear about how you and DJH have been growing over the years and what your plans are for the future. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Anything we haven't touched on that you think would be good for us to explore, at least for a minute or so?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say is kind of as a CEO, kind of can be quite lonely running a business, and you've got to surround yourself with like-minded individuals or people you can trust or people there to support you. I think my biggest challenge I had probably going through the journey was the ability to listen more. So kind of, I suppose in my earlier career, I could kind of win by just getting stuck in and rolling my sleeves up and doing an extra shift or kind of working the weekend or kind of burning the midnight oil to make things happen. And kind of every decision would have been mine. And the smaller bits when we were less than 50 people, and you could influence every decision and interfere with everything. And I think one thing I've learned along the way is sometimes you've got to let some of the small things go. And that's hard because you don't want to lose quality, but perhaps your decision isn't always the right one. Why have really specialist teams if you don't back them and you don't back them? You're not always right yourself, but kind of going into those meetings and listening a bit more. Kind of I talk about you never want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to go in that room and not be the smartest person, so you come out learning something. Otherwise, it's pretty pointless. So I think I'd say it's quite lonely being a CEO, so you need to surround yourself by people. Surround yourself with better people all the time because you learn from them and they push you and they make you grow. Listen to people and listen to your team and kind of learn from it, because that helps you adapt and change. And that's been my, I would say, my biggest learning along the way. As even when our investors were looking at us, they started to not get frustrated, but in the early days, before they invested in us, I'd go to meet them and I was going around London and meeting all these investors, and I'd come away with, they'd say, what does good look like? And I'd go away and I'd make all my notes and I'd go back and make those changes in my business. And then 3 months later, I'd go back and they'd tell me something else. And one investor did say to me, I'm going to stop telling you things because kind of the price is just getting more expensive every time.
Yeah, you're just making the business better.
So I think listen to others, listen more, take your time, but don't be scared to challenge things, and kind of just because you've tried something once before doesn't mean it won't work the second time you've done it with a different team.
Well, and maybe learning from the first time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Scott, it's been really great to have you on the podcast. Really great to hear both your story and the DJH story. I wish you well and look forward perhaps to catching up and hearing a bit more about how it's moved on somewhere down the line.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time out. I really enjoyed it.
Been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Purposeful Strategist. In addition to being available on our website, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, please do follow us and leave us a 5-star review. It helps others find the podcast. Thanks again, and join us soon for the next episode of The Purposeful Strategist.